Hello, everybody in the chess world. I'm gonna do something slightly different today. I'm not used to showing you like classical games. I think, yeah, YouTube channels are full of those. So normally I will show you games that I play or things that I think that wouldn't be able to find elsewhere on the internet. But this game is I'm going to show to you is between Garry Kasparov and Oscar Panno. You know what? Probably the biggest star in Argentinian chess history. So already have quite an interesting lineup for any Argentinian to see. The game was played in 1997 and Garry was white. Garry starts the game with d4, Panno plays knight f6, c4 e6, knight c3, and a nimzo-indian by Panno. So first, everything normal, queen c2, one of the main lines, castles as well, a3, bishop takes, queen takes, b6, maybe the main move, probably bishop g5 as well. Now I think the main moves are either bishop b7 or h6, if I remember correctly. Panno plays c5, more unusual. Garry plays e3, and Panno plays d6. Again, maybe unexpected. These last two moves, not the most normal thing to play for black, d6 and c5. So first, Garry takes on c5. And commentators were all saying that this was quite an interesting move, and I agree. Maybe not the most expected one. Instead of just developing a piece, knight f3 or bishop e2. B takes c5. And, well, here Kasparov again makes an unexpected move. He played long castles, which was again given an exclam sign, and yeah, anyone would agree, right? Because first of all, Garry had to restrain himself of playing the most normal, natural computer move. Computer asks white to just take twice on f6 here and have a really small but really long-lasting advantage, right? Just structural advantage. Will be fine. Definitely not Garry's style, we all know that. But furthermore, well, this is why I marked this arrow through the b file. Long castles, well, with the b file open, which is a file that Garry has just opened in a way, well, again, it will be a disencouragement, right, to play long castles for us. I think if I were in a tournament play here, I will go like, well, long castles is interesting, but do I really want to play that? I'm a little bit afraid of the b file. But okay, Kasparov has seen something really, really concrete. So in here, Panno plays the move that I think that all of us will play. Let's say the most aggressive or the most straightforward move. He played knight e4. It's a cool trick. And yeah, now we are going to see why, Kasparov was the best player in the world for some in history of chess. I mean, because here he's going to make a move that to me is impossible. I would never see this move. So let's first analyze his position, because we also, everyone was saying, well, Panno must have felt pretty confident here with his position, because he probably saw that, well, first, against the most obvious bishop takes queen, well, of course he will recapture, but here, okay, if we were to play the obvious b takes e3, rook takes d8, then yeah, he just improved his position. It's the same material, but he double pawns. And if Kasparov was to try and be clever here and say, okay, I take a pawn and I protect the bishop, well, knight e4 is, well, and that's it, right? We hit the rook, we hit the f pawn, which after taking on f2, we will take the h1 rook. Rook cannot go back to d2. This is over. Furthermore, apparently Panno even saw this interesting possibility for Kasparov, queen c2. And because, yeah, it is true that after knight takes h5, there is this h4, which traps the knight. And it will trap it by, well, white will want to play h takes g5 and have, yeah, the rook and the queen, aiming here, right? I mean, this looks quite cool. But Panno had seen f5. So he's not only protecting h7 by blocking the diagonal of the queen with the pawn, but he also freed up the f7 square for the knight. So that will mean that now taking that knight is forced. And after h6 g5, queen takes g5. It is true that there is rook takes e6, but queen e7, right? And after queen e7, well, everyone was saying this position is now, well, unclear. Let us say that it is unclear. However, let's go back in hero. Having all of this in mind, and knowing what will happen with bishop takes e8 and with queen c2, now I will ask you to pause the video and think. Okay, if any of you doesn't know this game and have found the right move, well, call me. I'd like you to be my new teacher. Because Garry here played queen d3. Queen d3 is allowing every possible capture in the book for black. Black now can play knight takes g5, black can play queen takes g5, black can play knight takes f2. So that's, quite amazing. And you'll see how precise this move is. I will say it is disgustingly precise. Because, okay, first of all, let us see what would have happened with any take on g5. Because those moves did not happen. So, if queen takes g5, after queen takes e4, which, well, some of you might have thought, okay, this is unplayable for black because white is on the a8 rook. So, well, it is true that black always has a resource here, which is playing d5, and after c takes d5, bishop b7 intermediate move. So that will mean that the rook on a8 is safe, and we are pinning and trying to recover on d5. But simply knight h3, developing a piece, winning the tempo by hitting the knight, well, this is already quite a big advantage for Garry. And I think, if we could continue with knight f4 maybe. However, much more interesting is knight takes g5. I'm taking here for this game the analysis of Garry Kasparov himself and Luke Vinatz, because he did also some analysis. But this is a detail that they did not see, because, okay, I was looking at this game at this position with some different engines. And, okay, h4 is, of course, the moves that comes, right? And, one of the engines actually recommended knight e4, and we're trying kind of going to similar lines as before. But there was another engine that thought, okay, I don't like the knight e4 line. It's too bad. And I really don't like the idea of white opening the h file with the strength of the rook and the queen. So one of the engines actually recommended here for black knight h3.
Say what?
It's like the saddest move I've ever seen. You just go, okay, just go take my piece, develop one of your pieces, have everything just to maintain the h file closed and not allowing these tactics against the a8 rook. So it looks like a force taking chess, like knight h3 is awful. Okay, let us go back, because, okay, in this position after the double exclam queen d3, Panno played the most logical move, the one that all of us would have played, knight takes f2. Well, so the continuation was bishop takes queen, knight takes queen, bishop takes knight, rook takes, and bishop e4, which is Garry's point. Panno is a pawn up here, and white has a really small advantage in development. And it's true that, d5, this same resource as in the other lines, appears, well, it's forced, otherwise we'll lose the a8 rook. And after pawn takes, bishop b7. This is true, and this is what happened in the game. By the way, I think Vinatz was commenting on f5. If f5 with the idea of answering bishop f3 with e5, trying to go for e4, then white will just play the most obvious, the simplest thing, d6, forcing e4, and just bishop e2. And they were saying, okay, let's say bishop e6, knight h3. And it's basically a clear advantage for white, and Garry will follow with knight f4, maybe knight g5, and that's it. So, going back, Panno did play bishop b7, most logical, but knight e2, simple development by Garry, and seeing that, taking on d5 will probably not be too good for Panno, which he didn't. He played knight d7. So, the problem with e takes d5 is knight c3, the pawn is pinned, and we just added another force. And yeah, again, you cannot defend this pawn, you cannot take the bishop, you cannot advance, you cannot do anything. You know, if you advance, we'll just take the bishop. So knight d7, and here they were all saying, okay, now just play it simple. Bishop takes, rook takes, with idea of rook fd1, and I think they were given, again, like a small but long-lasting edge for Garry here, but it feels kind of more like probably a clear advantage, right? Because yeah, material is equal, pawns are as awful for black as for white, because you have this isolated c5 pawn, but white has this isolated e3 pawn. But yeah, we are going to double up on the d file, and the c5 pawn is really weak, so this was kind of nasty, right? So knight d7 was the choice by Panno, but g takes e6 exclaimed by Garry. Yeah, as the commentator says, nothing escapes Kasparov. He sees everything. So yeah, and after bishop takes, well, taking the knight wasn't good, because bishop takes g2, and after this we will pin it. But Kasparov had obviously seen actually e7, just removing the defender, and after rook e8, rook takes e7. So here Panno played f6 with the idea of playing king f7 and taking on e7. And it's funny, now we'll see this sequence that we see on the Caro-Kann opening. I think it's the main line, the Capablanca line. Because yeah, Garry goes knight g3, bishop g6 as in the Caro-Kann, h4 as in the Caro-Kann. The idea is to play h5, and since Panno wants to put his king on f7, he doesn't want his bishop there. So as in the Caro-Kann, h6, h5, bishop h7, quite funny. And here, well, there might, probably, maybe Panno felt some hope. Like, okay, I'm trying to play king f7 and taking on e6, on e7, I'm sorry. And doubling up rook on the d file, well, doesn't seem to do much about it, right? It's not a bad move, but I don't really care. But Garry actually had rook h4, again, exclam prepare, just with the idea of playing rook c4. So, well, Panno just resigned himself to play king f7 and taking on e7 anyway. I guess if you play rook ac8, well, I guess we can play like this. And if you come here, well, what are you going to do with black? Because if one day you take in here, well, this one will not be defended anymore before we'll win the pawn. You know, it looks like a really ugly situation. So going back, he actually went king f7. And after rook c4, he thought, okay, well, let us exchange everything. And after king d6 b4, well, now, for the first time, we have to say that Garry is objectively winning. This is a winning position, so we now pass into a more technical phase. But let us see that phase, because, well, as usual, Garry is very precise. So, rook e8, king d2 protecting the pawn, and rook e5. Since the rook on c5 is so active, Panno probably thought, well, I might as well exchange those in search for a draw or some chances. Kasparov exchange and play a4. Bishop g8, and it's funny, yeah, because here Kasparov is like, okay, I'm going to advance those pawns. And Panno was like, yeah, it's okay, do that. In fact, I'll even force you. And Kasparov was like, all right, I'll do it. And Panno was like, no, but really, I'll force you. And Kasparov was like, no, but really, that's all right, mate, b6. So pawn takes, bishop d5, only move protecting, b7. So here Garry played e4, and it's quite obvious for anyone that black cannot take that pawn, because the b pawn will then run. But Panno played bishop b7, and I guess, well, king e3 was Garry's move, and bishop c6. And I guess that in some part of his mind, maybe Panno was thinking, okay, now Garry, you have to show me how you're gonna beat me, because otherwise I'm gonna just dance back and forth with my bishop, and just bishop, just wait, hang in there. So now, again, I'm gonna ask you to pause the video and think. Yeah, the strongest move is what Garry played, as usually happens, knight f5. So after bishop takes e4, I mean, what else for Panno? For the last time, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and think, because here Garry made a move and Panno just resigned. So the move is g4. Quite a cool move, right? Like he's a boss move, like subtle. Okay, Panno here resigned, but commentators gave like example lines of what could have happened. Let us say bishop d5, knight takes was already a winning continuation. Yes, we have d6 is not protected anymore, so Panno will take the opportunity to grab the b6 pawn. But yeah, these kingside black pawns are too weak. This will be the continuation, and here even worse because knight f5, the h pawn is already trying to run. So let us say king here, knight e7 is a problem. Again, the h pawn will run. And if bishop b3, they showed, well, just h6, and yeah, this is a problem. The knight will block that diagonal and will make and promote another queen with the h pawn. So again, going back, I think not only seeing queen d3 here, being able to evaluate it correctly, right? Again, you might see this move with a lot of thinking, but to actually play it, I mean, to me, this is amazing, really. So thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you next time.